family. It's your sister, Reverend Jocelyn here, and welcome to another episode of Faith on the Journey. If this is your first time tuning in, I welcome you. I'm so glad that you are here and want you to know that our company is committed to helping you strengthen your faith, heal your heart, and discover a sense of community. And we do so through a variety of ways by connecting you with a team of Christian counselors who really love journeying with you to help you to heal. And we also offer trauma healing trainings for church leaders across the country. You can learn about these resources and so much more by visiting our website at faithonthejourney.org. Again, that is faithonthejourney.org. Now, today we are hanging out with just me and having an honest conversation about a topic that sometimes we shy away with discussing in the church, and that is the times in which we feel angry. Like I'm talking about, I am angry. You know, those moments where someone might have hurt you deeply. You might have went through a major argument. Something happened where you felt betrayed and you were just like, oh, I'm full of this emotion that's uncomfortable. And a lot of times in the church, people might come to you and say, oh, no, don't be angry, or might make you feel guilty about this. But this is a topic that we benefit from discussing because the emotion of anger is not a bad thing in and of itself. And I want us to talk about this because instead of suppressing this human emotion that we might feel, when it comes to emotions, it's best for us to explore it and explore from a place of curiosity. And so we're going to talk about that today. And I want to be very transparent with you because for me, anger was an emotion that I tried my best to shy away from, particularly because, wanted to be Miss Christian, holier than thou, fooling myself. Because when I went through my divorce process, this was an emotion that I became very familiar with. Not going to lie. And with that, it was uncomfortable because for me, for so long, I would deny the fact that I was angry. I denied the fact that I felt some type of way about what I was going through. And granted, I had to process that anger. But the order for me to process that anger, I had to admit that I even felt that way to begin with. Now, anyone who has gone through a divorce process before can probably vouch for this and say that divorce can get ugly. Divorce is painful. I don't wish that on anyone. But if you are going through it right now or have gone through it, you know what I mean when I say it could be an emotional roller coaster ride. One moment, you might feel like I'm about to lose my mind. The next moment, you might feel like you are having an Angela Bassett moment where you are blowing up some things and walking away from a blaze like forget the world. If you know what I'm talking about from Waiting to Exhale, that was a scene, right? She had a moment. And we can have these moments and again, not know what to do with it. But when I was going through my divorce process, I remember I was in the car and I had got some news about the divorce process being delayed again. And, my ex-husband, he did some things obviously I didn't agree with. And so I'm, going through the situation. And in that, I just remember having a moment, like a breakdown in the car with few choice words that I can't say here. Yes, there were some explicit words that just came out of my mouth. It wasn't my best moment. Don't judge me. But yeah, those words were coming out of my mouth and I'm crying out to God and I'm angry. I'm like, why is this happening to me? I can't understand. I'm like, can't we just get through this? I mean, it was just a whole thing. For a good 10 minutes, I exploded. And afterwards, I felt really bad about it. I was like, God, I'm like, I, I, I repent, God. That's not even me to say all these things. I couldn't even believe I just went plumb off like that. But here's the thing. I had to allow myself grace because I am human. And that's the thing. We get to be human. We get to have moments. And quite frankly, God knew his daughter was feeling all these things. And I've learned it's actually an act of faith to be able to be honest with your creator who already knows and come to God with the feelings, with the stuff that we're going through so that we can express it, get it out, process it. And then, if we go off the rails, we can repent. But at least we're getting it out. And so I did. I had that moment. I expressed my pain through lament. That's a whole process, a Christian practice of lament is crying out to God, saying, God, please, deal with my enemies, deal with the person who has hurt me. Help me process this pain. God, I'm feeling this type of way, but I trust you. I'm coming to you with this problem as an act of faith because I trust you, God, to handle it. Help me, Lord. That's an act of lament. And so I was lamenting, I was crying out all the things. I got it out my system. I cried it out. And then afterwards, I took it a couple steps further, right, to help me to process this anger. I began to journal about it because I was like, whoa, okay, I just went off the rails here. So what was going on here with me? And so I journaled about it. And I also talked about it with my counselor because I stayed in therapy throughout this entire process. And that's the thing. When we are carrying anger, it's not a sin to feel the emotions, right? But it's what you do with it that can cause the problems. Because if I did, in fact, take that moment of anger and then I went and found my ex-husband's car and slashed his tires, like some of us might be feeling, okay, you sinned. You went too far right there. But just the feeling itself of saying, I'm feeling some type of way, God, help me with this anger, help me with these emotions, then that's an honest thing. And God can help you with those emotions. And so we have to find healthy ways to process these emotions that we have. And so with that, the journaling, the counseling, and through the counseling, this is where it began to help because my counselor was able to ask questions related to these emotions that were just bubbling over and felt out of control and helped me to go deeper, not from a place of judgment, but a place of curiosity to see, hey, what's underneath this anger that you have here? Because in counseling or in the mental health field, that is, we talk about anger actually being a secondary emotion. It's not the primary emotion that we are actually dealing with, the root emotion, but it's a secondary emotion, a byproduct of the primary emotion that we're actually feeling underneath. Let me explain what I'm trying to say here. So to give you a visual, I want you to imagine an iceberg. And at the tip of the iceberg, there is anger. And underneath the iceberg, what we can't see underneath the water is all these other emotions. It might be guilt. It might be sadness. It might be shame. It might be fear, insecurity. And so in the mental health field, we talk about the anger iceberg because anger is what we see, which is a secondary emotion. But underneath the water is all these other primary emotions. That's really the root cause of the anger that most people will see. So people see you snapping off in the middle of the grocery store going crazy or going off in traffic or just having an explosion in front of them. They see the tip of the iceberg, which is the anger. But underneath that is the fact that you are stressed out of your mind. You are disappointed. You felt hurt. You felt betrayal. There's insecurity. There's all these other things that are causing us to then express ourselves in this secondary emotion. And so through counseling, asking those questions to help you peel back that onion of what other people might see is what's going to help you to say, okay, underneath this anger, what I'm really feeling right now is disappointment. I am feeling disappointed that my marriage ended in shambles. I'm feeling disappointed that this person, whether it's a friend or a colleague at work, betrayed my trust. I am really saddened by the fact that my business went under. I am discouraged. I'm stressed right now that, I went through XYZ. And when you really start asking the questions as it relates to what is underneath the anger, you begin the process of healing and really addressing what's at the root. But in order to do that, we have to admit what we are feeling and explore it from a place of curiosity. And that is the point I want to drive home. Because again, many of us have been taught in church culture to throw some sprinkles of scripture on top of things and say, I'm too blessed to be stressed with these Christian platitudes, and not admitting to ourselves that we're going through. We feel some type of way about the situation. We're having a hard time. We need prayer. And please hear me. I'm not minimizing the power of prayer. I'm not minimizing the power on meditating on scriptures. But there is such a thing called spiritual bypassing, where we try to minimize our human experiences and we try to tell other people, oh, don't worry about it. Oh, you're going to get through it, without allowing people to be honest about the fact that we are in this body right here on earth. We haven't made it to glory yet. We are on the struggle bus going through this situation. And in addition to prayer, in addition to scripture, we need to be able to express ourselves honestly to someone who's going to listen to us and not try to downplay what we're going through. And so for all of us, we need safe spaces to be honest about these emotions. And when it comes to something like that, I'm so thankful, in addition to therapy, in addition to me having my other coping skills to deal and address my anger, I had some girlfriends that I could just be like, girl, I'm struggling right now. I'm feeling some type of way right now. Help me not do something crazy, right? And that's the real. And I wanted to be candid. I wanted to be honest with you as I could be about this situation, because I know that in our walk, as much as we love God, as much as we try to be faithful, we all have moments where we are at the brink. And with that, I want you to know that it's okay for you to have those moments. We just need to have some guardrails, the bumper rails. When you go bowling, they have the little kitty, the little bumpers to make sure the ball don't go in the gutter. We got to make sure that we have friends, we have family, we have prayer warriors who gonna be like, okay, I know you're angry, but I ain't gonna let you go in the gutter. I'm not gonna let you do what you thinking about doing. We gonna bring it back. I'm gonna let you vent. I'm gonna let you get it out. Okay, we're gonna talk it through. I'm not gonna judge you, but I'm not going to allow you to do something that you're gonna regret. So how do we process this in a way that is healthy, that doesn't bring harm to both you by you suppressing this emotion, but also is not going to bring harm to others, right? And so that's key. And just kind of rewinding what I just said back just a second. If we don't get this thing out, if we choose to suppress our emotions when it comes to what we're feeling, if we choose to suppress the anger that we feel or all the other stuff that's going on inside, I'm telling you, there's a cost to that. It's a cost to that, because just like I don't want you going out there exploding out onto others when it comes to anger and doing something crazy. At the same time, if you just swallow it without doing something, it has physical ramifications for you. If you're carrying that, people have all types of chronic health issues because they haven't dealt with their stress. They've been carrying trauma. They've been carrying the anger. And so you're not sleeping well. You might be gaining weight, losing weight. Your body might be having certain diseases due to dis-ease that you're carrying, right? And so we can see that taking place. It plays a toll on your mental health. It plays a toll on how you engage others. It can play a toll on even how you look at God, right? And so the goal is not to just carry these emotions that you're feeling and swallowing them, nor is it, again, we get a free pass on acting any type of way because we're feeling angry. The goal is to process these emotions in a way that brings healing. That brings healing, right? And so we are going to take a quick break. And then I am going to come back with some final thoughts and recommendations on what we can do to express ourselves in a way that brings healing and brings hope. I'll see you after this commercial break.
I'll never forgive you for what you did to me.
I feel so dirty.
I just don't know who I am anymore.
I can't believe I'll never see him again. I've got to be strong for my family.
I can't let him see me cry.
What happens in this house stays in this house.
I can't take this anymore. I feel like I'm living my entire life behind a mask.
The mask is the keeper of secrets and master of illusions. It despises authenticity, fears transparency, and knows no vulnerability. The mask will stop at nothing to keep its image intact and emotions at bay. In its simplest form, the mask is the facade we project to the world. But what is hidden in the dark will come to light. Even if we master the art of wearing the mask, the pain that we've buried has the power to hold us captive in the shackles of shame, anger, and despair. But there is power greater than our pain, greater than our past, and greater than what the world says about us. There is a God who can heal us from our pain and can free us from defining our values based on the world's standards. There is hope, and you can embark on your journey towards freedom by reading the book Breaking the Power of the Mask by author and motivational speaker Jocelyn Jones. Discover the joy and healing that rightfully belongs to you. No more shame, no more fear, and no more hiding behind the mask.
I'm breaking the power.
I'm breaking the power.
I'm breaking the power of the mask.
Get your copy today by visiting breakingthemask.com.
Welcome back. So we're continuing this conversation here about anger and how to express it and deal with this emotion that could be very uncomfortable and very unfamiliar for some of us. And with that, we talked about how we're not going to suppress. We're not going to judge the anger. First, we need to recognize that we feel this emotion, and then we're going to find ways to express it so then we can work through it. And this takes time. This takes continuous effort in doing the work around processing what is underneath the anger, because we also learned in the first half that anger is not necessarily the primary emotion here. It's a secondary emotion. It's a byproduct of what is underneath, and that takes exploration. But once we recognize that we're angry, okay, we got that. Once we express it, what do we do with this emotion? And this is where the deeper work continues. Well, first, if our anger is at an individual, then we must explore what can be very difficult for us. And this is the process of forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is a whole entire episode in and of itself. I'm just touching on it in this episode because it's an important part of the healing process. And forgiveness is something that is not a one and done type thing. When you've had a deep heart wound, we will make a decision to say, I'm going to choose to forgive this person, but it's a choice and a process. Okay, we can decide, okay, I need to forgive this person. We know it. As believers, we need to forgive. All right, we're called to forgive. And we can say, I'm choosing to forgive this person, but it takes a while for our heart to catch up to that. And that's the process of walking it out. And forgiveness is not necessarily forgetting that took place because you have a memory. And quite frankly, you don't want to forget, because if that person was harmful for you or harmful to you, it's important that we keep healthy boundaries and we protect ourselves from further harm. All right. So we're not forgiving and forgetting per se. And it doesn't mean that we are back in relationship with that person. if we forgive them, because forgiveness doesn't also necessarily equal reconciliation. It might lead to reconciliation, but it's not always the case because it might not be safe to reconcile. And forgiveness is also not saying that what that person did to you is okay or right. Forgiveness is making a choice to release that individual from your heart. The bitterness, the resentment is releasing them and giving them over to God, trusting that God is the ultimate judge, saying that I am not the one to be able to judge this person's sin against me in such a way where I am going to hold them in captivity in this cage in my heart. I'm not going to hold this energy against them. God, I'm releasing them to you, who you are the God who's the ultimate God of justice. And I know you will handle this situation. And so forgiveness is not letting that person off the hook. It's none of those things. But forgiveness is an important part of the forgiveness of the healing process, and that is going to require us to release. And with that, again, it takes time, but make the decision. I am going to eventually release this person. I'm choosing to forgive, and eventually your heart will catch up if you continue to put it before God over and over and over again. All right. So forgiveness is one of the steps in the process. The next thing I want to talk about when it comes to anger is understanding that anger could be used as a way to galvanize you to take action. There is such a thing as righteous anger, because when we think about our God was angry about certain things that took place. There were times where God was going off. In the Old Testament, I was like, God, wow, you was not playing games. And that was a righteous anger that we were all witnessing God engage in. And so there's times in which when someone is killed, if a child is murdered or anybody is murdered, if we see crime, if we see injustice, racism, hatred, certain things taking place in our society, yes, we feel angry about those things because it's wrong. And that, I believe, is in line with God's heart, to be angry when it comes to injustice, because we serve a God who is just. But again, just because we're angry doesn't give us the right to go ham and go crazy. We're not going to do that. But what we can do is take that anger that we feel inside and go out and do something to fight for justice, instead of just sitting back and being like, I'm angry, and be like, I can't do anything. No, you have the power to go out here and make a change. Maybe you do some community organizing. Maybe you get involved in some type of project or mission to fight against that injustice. I've seen it happen before where individuals had lost a loved one due to gun violence, due to drunk driving, due to something else that was a horrific tragedy. And what did they do? They galvanized that anger. They channeled that anger to do something, to start a nonprofit, to start some type of movement to fight against the issue that harmed their loved one. Anger was what drove them to make change. And so with that, that is something that you can do to help you to release, to help you to feel like I have power to do something around this situation, and bring some good out of what could have been a devastating situation in your life. And so consider that if you are dealing with processing your anger, how can it be channeled to do something good, to make a difference? Also, when it comes to anger, I have worked with domestic violence survivors in the past, and I am a domestic violence survivor myself. And anger was one of the emotions that I felt that led me to leave an abusive relationship. I said, enough is enough. I am done with this. And for some, anger can channel you to set boundaries, to say, no, I'm worth more than this. No, I'm not going to deal with this craziness anymore, and galvanize you to make change in your life. Again, you don't need to do anything crazy while you're angry to harm others, but you can say, What can I do that's still God honoring to protect myself, to move myself forward in the right direction? And again, this is where when you are in the care of a counselor, someone who cares about you to help you to process what you are feeling, what you're going through, and channel these emotions in a way that moves you forward in the right direction, then anger doesn't have to have control over you. Anger doesn't have to be what causes you to do something destructive. Instead, you can galvanize that in a healthy way to move you forward in the direction that is helping you to heal and to grow. And so those are some thoughts that I wanted to share with you as you might be navigating some of these honest emotions yourself. And as we reflect on what we learned this episode, let me summarize a couple things for us. Again, we are not going to suppress, we're going to explore these emotions. Secondly, this is a point I want to make clear. Anger is not the enemy. Anger is not the enemy. It's a sign that is something deeper there. And so we're not going to judge it. We're going to explore it. We're going to learn from it. We're going to put people around us who care about us to help us to process this honest emotion. And over time, if we do the work to look underneath, we'll be able to not only release the anger, but we can heal from whatever has caused the anger to begin with. So I hope this episode blessed you. I hope you learned some things from it. And if so, do me a favor and share this episode with a friend who needs to hear this, and also leave a review. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and slam that subscribe button if this is your first time tuning into this channel. I'd love for you to catch each episode that we offer to help you to grow in your walk with God and to heal. Lastly, if you are looking for a Christian counselor, we are here to serve you. We understand what it's like to experience trauma, to experience loss, to be going through a difficult time. And we can be that space to help you to process these emotions so you can grow and learn from it. So be sure to check us out at faithonthejourney.org. Again, that is faithonthejourney.org to learn more about our services. So that's it for this episode, family. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you stay encouraged, you stay blessed, and you keep your faith on the journey. I'll see you soon, family.